Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Desk, where we do an in-depth with VPs, CEOs, business leaders, and innovators around the world. Today, most people treat resistance bands like harmless rubber, right up until one snaps back at their face and kills their trust in band training. Stroops flipped that script with Slastix, a safety sleeve system powering safer, smarter, more explosive training that's quietly powering athletes, clinics, and home gyms around the world. In this episode, I sit down with President Shon Harker to dig into the wild origin story of Stroops, how Slastix changed the game, what happens when you start combining this kind of equipment with next-level systems and intelligent tech. Shon, welcome to the show.
Awesome. My name is, as Brendan said, my name is Shon Harker. I started this company back in, officially 96, but a little bit before then, as I just, working out of my house. I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering. I was a two-time academic All-American football player, and was fortunate enough to kind of pursue a little bit of a dream. I've always dreamed of making products. And, when I was younger, was in grad school, and I still remember the day I was trying to figure out how to lift weights without using your fingers. My fingers are the smallest muscles part of your body, and I've got my big lats and shoulders. I want to get a serious workout, and I'm like, okay, how can I bypass my grip? And so I thought of ways to do this. I went down to the sewing store and I bought some webbing, and didn't have a sewing machine at the time, so I had the lady sew a couple straps for me. Had this concept, had bypassed my grip. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get in trouble and get fired if they find out, and so I can't be doing this for you." So she did one or two, and then my wife found a garage sale home sewing machine. And so my mom had taught me how to sew when I was a kid, and so okay, let me try to sew up a couple different configurations. Well, this is way before the internet, and I know the good chunk of your listeners probably don't believe there ever existed a life before internet, but there was a life before internet, and you couldn't find suppliers, and you didn't know where to buy suppliers. You didn't know how to reach customers. You couldn't just Google it. You couldn't just go online, and it was almost door knocking. But we actually found, different ways to do it and make it. And I mean, matter of fact, the first foam pad that was to go on the back of the wrist was actually made out of a cozy cup. And if you don't know what a cozy cup, it's basically a beer mug that you kind of like a styrofoam thing. And I didn't know what the material was even called, so I went down like a dollar store and I bought this cozy mug, and I took scissors and chopped it out. Well, it actually has a curve that goes around the beverage, and it curved and matched right around the wrist. So that was the first padding I'd ever put on this product. And then I went to a trade show. I developed it for the next year or two, dinking around in the evening, and took it to a trade show. And this is kind of crazy too. It's the first time a trade show I've ever been to. And I had a suit on, thinking that's how you do business. Everybody does business in a suit. I mean, why would you think anything else?
Yeah.
So I dressed up my little three-piece suit, tie, show up with my cute little homemade packaged product. And right across the aisle from me was K2 with their professional inline skaters on a half pipe doing their thing. And I'm over here with a suit and tie on, and everybody walking through has the coach's shorts and t-shirt on. And I'm in a three-piece suit. I'm like, dude, I'm so out of place. I have no idea what I'm doing. But eventually I ended up, someone asked me to do some ankle straps and different straps. I'm like, okay, I'll go home and sew them. And then, like you talked about the elastic thing, where that came about, someone said, well, can you make elastics with your products? And it's because then you could take your handles and your straps and you could do more workouts with this. I said, okay, yeah. So I bought some elastic tubing like everybody's used to seeing at the gym. And I said, okay, but they're kind of dangerous because they break. And one of my customers said, hey, can you make really long ones to teach speed and agility to athletes? I said, well, the problem is that they break, and we all know they break. And so how are we going to get around this thing? And this guy's like, well, if you ever can figure out a way to make an elastic that's safe, then I'm interested. And so I'm like, okay, that's a fun challenge. And so I went to work on trying to figure out how in the world to make a safe elastic band. And one that wouldn't overstretch, one that would be protected from sunlight, people drag them across the track and in the gym, and people wrap it around different things. And like, it's an interesting design problem, which is really where I make my living. I actually design products for a living in the fitness and rehab space and other spaces. And so I worked on it for a long while, and I had all these different kinds of designs that try to figure out how to do it. I mean, ropes around the outside. I even looked at making a dryer hose. You have a dryer hose kind of accordions in and out on the back of your dryer. I'm like, okay, that'd be really kind of cool, but how do you put a rubber band through a dryer hose? And then you got this big monster dryer hose that you're working out with. Like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. And then my mom said, well, if you sew a long piece of fabric and you fold it over and you make it a long tube, then you could do it. I said, yeah, but you can see the seam on the outside and it's going to look really stupid. He says, well, yeah, but then you got to turn it inside out. I said, well, I've got to make these things like 60 to 80 feet long. I'm like, how do you turn this little thing inside out that's 80 feet long? You're going to spend like 10 days trying to figure out how to do it. And so I came across, when I was just looking around, I came across, and this might be before everybody else's time too, that's your listeners, but back in the day, the bigger the shoelace, the cooler you were. And you had to have a big flat shoelace and you were the cool. You had your sports shoes and a big flat shoelace. And so I'm walking by and I see this big flat shoelace, and I asked at a fabric show, and I said, hey, can I see that shoelace? And the shoelace was actually tubular. It was hollow on the inside. It's the first time I've ever seen a hollow fabric. I'm like, I wonder if I could take a rubber band and shove it through a shoelace and get it to work. And so I bought some shoelace. I don't know if I still have it here. It's been 20, 30 years ago. And I bought a roll of this shoelace fabric, and it kind of looks like your on your hoodie right there. It's kind of really flat like that. Mm-hmm. And so I made little baby prototypes of an elastic with a small elastic with a shoelace over the top, and I could demonstrate the concept. The problem is that no one made a tubular. I'm like, someone's making tubular something. I don't know where to get it. And again, before internet. So I looked around through my sources and eventually found somebody who had made a tubular fabric. And then once you make the tubular fabric, then you have to figure out how to connect everything and attach it and assemble it and do it quickly and all these other fun things. And so I ended up inventing the sleeved elastic, and you mentioned the name Slastix before. That took a while too, because someone's like, well, what do we call this? I was me, like, how do we brand this? We call it safety, sleeve, elastic, safety, we got 10 words to try to describe something. And then we were sitting one day with some interns after we read competitions and all kinds of stuff. Anyone can come with their name. And the gal's like, her name is Heidi. She's like, safe, elastic, Slastix. And you're like, dude, I was like, conversation over. That's it, Slastix. We'll just put an X at the end for the C and the S, or CS, and that's going to be Slastix, Slastix. Slastix is the name. And people have asked me all the time, and I might jump to the question, people say, well, where do the name Stroops come from? Well, the very first product that I invented was that strap that bypassed your grip. And the way you would do it is you'd take a strap and you'd loop it around a dumbbell or a barbell or a cable machine. It's attached to everything. And it would be a strap that would loop onto different things. And I was like, one night, strap, loop, Stroops, that's it. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of a cool name for the product. And then we were at a trade show one time, and some dude's like, dude, you guys have the most innovative products I've ever seen in this space. You guys are always coming up with cool stuff. And then he stared at the name like, and even your name is freaking cool. Stroops, sports backwards. Who would ever, that's amazing. We're like going, yeah, that's what we thought. That's not what it was, a strap and loop. But it's sports spelled backwards with an extra O, and I was like, dude, that's the brand. The brand is sports spelled backwards, Stroops. It's the original product. It's that cool combination of names. And then the other name is Slastix, which is a safe elastic combined into one word. And so that's the history of it. one of the things is there's no stretch limitation. So you're like, okay, I'm stretching. When do I stop? Because the more I pull back, the more resistance I get. Well, man, I'm feeling strong today. I'm just going to step a little further back. Well, when do you stop? And I ask people the same question, like, when do you stop? And they're like, oh, when it breaks. One of the problems that people have is they overstretch a band, and now I have a built-in stretch limiter. You can't overstretch it.
Yeah.
Okay? In addition, as you know, people will wrap it around bars and things to do exercises with. Well, we have this protected sleeve that you don't get nicks and cuts on the bar that you wrap it around. We tell people not to wrap it around, and it's not good for any elastic to wrap around a bar. There's sharp things to cut. But ours is going to last longer because it's protected. The other thing that this does, we've had some people try to copy whatever we're doing, and they will and they can't copy. They'll try to put things on the inside, all kinds of around. But the sleeve actually acts as a shade mechanism to shade the elastic, because sunlight erodes elastic and so any ultraviolet rays. So now I have a permanent shade on it, so it doesn't erode that. I know most women have done this, and some guys where you pull the elastic across your body or around the back of your neck, which feels really, really good. And it usually pinches the hair and pulls the skin. Well, that solves the problem of that. And then if the elastic ever breaks, let's say this one wears out over who knows how many years, the elastic just coils up inside of the sleeve and no one gets injured. Whereas the other band would break and snap you in the face. We've got cases where someone's been hit in the eye, lost an eye, lost a testicle, all kinds of things. Just want to let you know, you're just kind of saying stuff and wasn't. But that's kind of, so we make these anywhere from like about a 3-pound resistance where you kind of pull it just a little bit for rehab.
Yep.
Up to 150 pounds, where it takes 150 pounds to pull it all the way out.
Wow.
So we'll make them anywhere from maybe 6 inches long. The longest one I've ever made is 75 feet. They'll stretch to 75 yards. The longest we're capable of making is 100 feet that stretches to 100 yards. So, and we make it all in the United States. So almost everybody else goes overseas. You'll find stuff on Amazon. And usually what they do, they usually put crap on the inside, like junky, plasticky product, elastic that doesn't stretch very well, or they put garbage on the outside. And I tell people it's kind of like putting a Lamborghini body on a VW engine. It's like, dude, it looks like it's awesome, but inside, when you start to drive it, it's like a Pinto, I should say, like a 70s Pinto or something like that. Like you pretend like it's what it is, but it's not. So there's the difference between the quality, and they just try to imitate, but it's not the same. We've been doing this for pretty close to 30 years. And I design stuff for all the big names out there in the fitness space. So
no, that's the true entrepreneurial start to finish of I had a product, I almost put it on a napkin, right? I took it, I made concepts of it, I went and built it, and then you took it to market, and here you are 30 years later, successful in what you're doing. Yeah. So absolutely incredible. If you would go back to those early days when you were kind of mixing the engineering with the performance, what made you think, like, this isn't just a product, right? This could actually change how athletes and everyday people move and train?
That's been a really interesting evolution, because I don't, the concept of it, of saying, okay, I'm just going to make a safe elastic, it seemed pretty straightforward. I mean, it's like, and when I share this with people, like, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I think of that? And I don't know if anyone's kind of like maybe the Apple world, like, I didn't know I needed that. I tell people, one of the other things I tell people, like, we invented the airbag and the seatbelt for cars, but for elastics. And, when you're driving around in a car, like, okay, back in the old days, we didn't wear seatbelts. And then you're like, okay, a couple crashes, like, oh, I didn't even know that a seatbelt would even work. Oh, I didn't know an airbag. Oh, that's cool. Now, I tell people, if you're using naked tubing, it's almost like you're driving a car without an airbag and a seatbelt. And so long as you don't get in a car accident, who cares? But soon you get in a car accident, or as soon as the elastic breaks, you're like, dude, where's my airbag? Why didn't I spend that extra money for a seatbelt? Why didn't I put my seatbelt on? And so that's really where that's at. So I think one of the very first things that happened, well, there's a couple problems. And this is like every entrepreneur is going to face this problem too, is that when you come up with a new product that's a game changer, matter of fact, in the sports world right now, you can't buy a product like this without a sleeve on it. I mean, you just don't do it anymore. When we first came out, we would ask people, why would we put a sleeve on it? And no one had any idea. They're like going, okay, it looks pretty. And so or whatever, they didn't really know why we would do it. Even today, people don't know why we do it. And so there's an education timeline. So now as an entrepreneur, like, oh my gosh, I invented something cool. Now I got to take the time to tell people why it's better than the other solution. Now, the easier way to do it is to just copy what someone else is doing. If you just copy someone else and say, oh, this is a handle and everybody else has got a handle, and you make it so similar but just a minor improvement, then you don't have to take as much education. There's a little bit, but not as much. But if you make a drastic change like this, which is not hugely drastic, but pretty dang drastic, people are going to wonder why. And then here's one of the other problems we had with it, and that is when we go to the distributor people, we say, man, this is going to be better, and this is going to last longer, and it's going to be safer, and the big one was last longer. Well, it's kind of like going to Home Depot and saying, hey, I've got these new light bulbs. Instead of paying $1 light bulb, you pay $1.50 for the light bulb or $2 for the light bulb, and they last forever. And Home Depot's like, yeah, I can make an extra buck, but I only sell it one time. If I can get you to buy a light bulb every 6 months and I make a buck, dude, over a lifetime, I'm making, $100 a light bulb. And so the distributors became an issue. And they're like, we don't really want to sell your product because we don't get the repeat business. So now as an entrepreneur, how do you then go to the end user and say, end user, there is a seatbelt, there's an airbag, we invented it. Here it is. And then you have to get the end users to go back to the distributors and say, I want this product. Okay, I'll get you this product. So as an entrepreneur, just because you invented the coolest widget, you may have a big education problem coming in. Like, so how do I tell the rest of the world to do this? And I've helped dozens, if not hundreds of inventors try to figure out how to get their product, invent their product and bring it to market. And one of the things they lack is the knowledge and ability and money to get you to market. And then the contacts. And so it's becomes they run at it. And usually the process to invent and then prototype, et cetera, all the way through the process is so bloody expensive and takes so long to do it that they run out of money. And then half the time they go to China, and China says you got to buy 1,000 of these things. And like, well, I don't know if anyone's going to buy any. Well, you got to buy a minimum of 1,000. If you buy 1,000, he's like, dude, I should have made them in pink instead of green. Well, that means you got another order of another 1,000 because you're stuck with pink inventory. So how do you work from your concept all the way to market? And how do you do it so that you're still cash in your pocket? And it's a really, really tricky space. I've done it hundreds of times. And the fastest one I've ever done is 15 minutes.
Which isn't crazy. It's just absolutely, you and I were talking about that when we had our pre-call, and that to me just boggles my mind, especially that you can just run back, put it together and say, here you go.
Yeah.
It shows your true entrepreneurial engineering mind that you have.
Yeah, but it's not only that. If you look at traditional inventors have a cool idea. I mean, traditional, man, I got this really, really cool idea. And most of them like, I don't know how to make it. I don't know where to go to make it. And what do we do next? And so usually they have a buddy that's an engineer or can sketch it out or whatever it is. And so they, okay, this is what I think it is. And then, okay, cool. Where do we prototype this? Oh, dude, I got a guy with a weld shop down the street. I bet you, the one with the 15-minute one, he's the guy who said that, hey, I went down to Home Depot and I bought these things and I did some of this and I did some of this. And this is what it kind of looks like. And if you brought this on the Shark Tank, they'd laugh your head off. They're like, dude, come back when the product's ready.
Yeah.
And then let's go. Yeah. And so my space is like, okay, you've made a cool product. I can see your concept. How can I make that? So now I can design it to manufacture it. Usually the traditional guy has the guy that makes it, his buddy that welds it up. And then he's like, okay, I think this is the right prototype. Let's go to market. And then you have to go find a production facility. Well, your one-off guy is like, I don't want to make 50 of these things. I make trailers and I fix people's widgets. I'm not going to do that. So now you have to find a production guy. Then you have to find a mass production guy. And then they say, well, I want back to the China. Now I want 1,000 of these things. And like, I don't know if they're going to sell. One of my favorite stories is some dude is like, I made this cool invention and I got the greatest deal in the world. I only had to buy 40,000 of them for $10 a piece. And I was going to sell a crap load of them. And so he buys 40,000 of these things. And it's like 6 years later, I'm like, dude, how many did you sell? He said, I've sold 1,000 of them.
No.
Yeah. He says, I've sold 1,000 of these things. I've still got 39,000 left. I took all my money and put it in inventory. I thought I was going to start selling. It didn't sell. And now I've got $500,000 worth of inventory, and most of it's rotting now at the warehouse. And so I had to go back and get another job so I could pay for this inventory. But I saved a bunch of money. Look how much money I saved, because if I would have bought them from Stroops, I would have paid, let's say, $20 for them. But then we would have made 10 at a time. Man, I paid double. I could save myself a whole bunch if I buy 40,000. And so that becomes the compromise for a lot of the inventors is, how do I bring my product to market and still have money and cash in my pocket to play? And it's really, really, really difficult to play that game.
Yeah, it's that quality over quantity kind of play where a lot of times entrepreneurs think, I want more to sell and more, and it's just maybe change the price point, right? Change the pitch.
But the problem is in certain things, to manufacture one at a time. There's another product I was making for somebody, and my price was like triple what they could get somewhere else. I'm like, yeah, but I'm making one at a time. If you want to buy 1,000 at a time, then I use different machines and they go different speeds. But right now, you don't want to take the risk for 1,000. So is it better to pay a higher price? And sometimes that's what it is for an entrepreneur. I'm not going to make any money right now. I'm going to buy it for $50 and sell it for $50, but I'm going to test to see if the market's available. That's probably a better solution than say, I can buy a bunch at $10, but I have to buy 10,000 of them. And then I don't know if anyone's going to buy any. So trying to figure out how to match and then this thing of, if you build it, they will come. That's not a thing. I mean, the only way that works is if you're a social media influencer. If you got 10 million followers and you're like, dude, I made this cool thing and everybody loves it, like, oh, I got to get it, then you'll sell a bunch. But the rest of us that don't have that big follower, then you have to do it a different way. So,
yeah, I think there's a lot of things that can be said about how people and how, this generation and people are trying to get things in the market. If we kind of switch focus a little bit back to like you personally, right? I mean, from your chair as president, like, what are the big friction points that still bug you? Things like educating new customers, knockoffs in the market, distribution, or just getting people to use Stroops to its full potential.
Probably some of the biggest challenges I've had is a lot of internal structure kind of stuff. So there's some internal stuff, which is like, how do you get all the people on the same page? And then how do you get the right people in the right seats? So in other words, like, oh, I sold a bunch this month, but didn't sell in the next month. Do I hire a person? Do I not hire a person? Is the person going to be quality or not? Do I save money on pay for a low price person? Now the quality's not very good. Or do a high price person and then they're bored out of their mind because they don't have a full work? So as a younger company, trying to balance people, internal, is challenging. I think for me also, if you look on the outside, it's trying to figure out how to communicate the message of your product or service when there's so much noise and competition in the market. I mean, back in the old days, there were 3 channels or 4 channels on TV, on television. You had your ABC, NBC, and CBS, and you picked one of those 3 channels to watch. And now there's 10 billion YouTube channels. There's trade shows, there's podcasts, and like I get hit up every 10 seconds for a different ad, and you pop up. You can't even watch a YouTube video without, it being interrupted 20 times by an ad. And so how do you get your information? And if the consumer, I watch my daughter who's 19, loves to do social media. She'll spend a second or a half a second on the image. If you don't grab it in that time, I've seen her do it, and like she stops for maybe 2 or 3 seconds. Don't like it. So how is a manufacturer, how does an inventor get enough time and attention with a potential buyer? And the concept is saying, I'm going to send out 10 million emails versus I'm going to go talk to Brendan and shake his hand like, dude, you got to check out this widget. But now I get a one-on-one, but I don't get 10 million people. I might get a quality one-on-one, and then to balance out between, do I get 10 million people or do I get one? And then to pay someone who's got 10 million viewers, it's tough. Getting your message out with all the noise is really, really challenging. And you can blow through a lot of money. I bought someone's company not too long ago who followed some internet specialist's advice and put in a bunch of marketing money into, I don't know if it's Facebook ads or whatever ads, they didn't turn out for him. And he spent more money and they weren't paying attention and they lost their shorts. So it happens all the time. And try this influencer, try this marketing campaign, try this whatever. And it will suck your money out of your back pocket so fast. So and to me, I think you have to balance that. And there's other ways to do it too. Do you get investors? Do you not? I never got any investors. It's slow growth. And so I don't have any investors. I own it all myself, and I don't owe anybody money for this. And it's just like, you know what? It might be slow growth. I've seen other people take on investors, and I've seen them go bankrupt. And I've seen the investors come in and kick them out of their own company. So what's the right solution? I don't know. It depends on what your risk level is.
If you're being brutally honest, right? You, yourself, and then the audience. Where do you feel Stroops is leaving money or impact on the table right now? Like too much manual work, scattered data, not having tight enough systems for how people discover and buy from you. Where do you think there's money on the table that's being left?
I think there's a couple different spots. One is I have a tendency, some of my skill sets are also some of my weaknesses. So the skill sets, I love to develop product. And the problem is I've developed multiple products in a week, and the production team can't keep up, and the sales people can't keep up. And so it's really cool to have innovation all the time, but at the same time, it bogs down some of the systems, and some people are like, just stay focused on your one product. Well, then I go like, it's betting all your money on one stock versus on a mutual fund where you could say, if that stock died, Bitcoin, yay, it's up. Oh, it's down. Versus a mutual fund that's, steady, growing. We have lots of, we don't have any one product that's crushing anybody else. We just have a whole bunch that are selling good. Nothing that's selling great. Bunch of goods. And so I think leaving money on the table is we have inventions sitting here waiting for people to sell them. And we don't tell anybody about them. And one of the biggest things is we don't tell anybody. We don't know how to tell people about our product. I just invent stuff and then go into the next one and invent something else. So that's one of the problems. I don't know about leaving money on the table. We have a really tight production system. So I don't think we're leaving. We are making money. We're making money by selling and manufacturing in the United States. If we took it overseas, I think we could be more profitable in certain categories. However, we have had contracts with people or we were supplying certain people, and let's say we sold something like 150 units a month. And then without warning, No, it's more than 150, about 150 units a month. Without warning, they switched to China. They switched to another supplier. And if we would have bought all this supply ourselves and brought it in, we only normally, without their business, we might sell 10 a month. If we bought 6 months worth of supply, we would have had 6 to 8 years worth of supply, and it would have killed our cash flow. So yes, we're not getting as high as margin, but we do control the quality in manufacturing, and we have the ability to stop and change production. Instead of making A, we can make B or C. So if a big customer calls and says, I need some more of this, and I go, well, we're 15 weeks out from China, you're gonna have to wait. And then we say, no, we're gonna change our production schedule. I'll have some out tomorrow. And so you lose some, but you also win. But I think the biggest money we're losing on our table is I haven't figured out how to get a salesperson to sell. I just can't figure out how to motivate them or hire them. Is it the product mix? Is it the marketing materials? People say, my gosh, you have all kinds of marketing materials. You have the coolest products in the world. Why aren't they selling as much? I don't know I'm not very good at hand-holding people to sell. I want somebody to come in and just rock and go. And
it's a great insight. And it kind of leads me into that absolute next question, right? So if I had handed you that magic wand, right, or that magic whiteboard and said, circle one problem you have to solve in the next 12 months for your company to hit the next level, what would you circle and why?
Awesome sales guy. Absolutely. Awesome sales guy that can sell more than what he costs. I'm not afraid. People are saying, oh, you're afraid to pay somebody. The problem is, if let's say you pay someone $100,000 a year, or just picking $100,000 for an easy number. If it takes him 6 months to make his first sell, you're already down 50 grand, and you got to catch up.
Yeah.
So how fast can the guy hit the ground and go running and close deals? And so right now, if I had a top sales guy that could come in and close deals and then set up a sales organization to duplicate his efforts, we've got more products that are just ready to go to market that he can choose 10 different markets and be super successful at. Yep.
If we look toward the future, right, and what you're looking at, paint the picture for me a few years from now. What does Stroops powered, facility look like and feel like? I mean, how are athletes, even patients and everyday movers, like interacting with your equipment and your education?
Well, first of all, I got to get the right salespeople in the right channels. If we had that, I think there'd be more and more discovery of what we can do and how we can do it for them. We're actually building more things. You can see this stuff in the back. We make everything in the background. And one of the cool things about us, and we make a bunch of other products too, and one of the things we try to do is make sure all the products match. And so the more products we get, we make sure they all match. And so if you want to build out a facility, instead of having one of those or one of these from different brands, now you can build out an entire thing that looks all cool together. And so I think what's going to happen is more and more people say, hey, I just want a station that looks like the Stroops station, whether it's our wood products or metal products. And they just, man, this is just a drop in. And we're still going to be in the functional space. We're not in the big equipment space. The products that I design are ones designed for you to move with or move from. We have a couple different little slogans. One's called Optimizing Movement. So we're all about how to make our movement better. And the other one's called Training at the Speed of Life. So training at the speed of life. So let me give you an example. What's one of the number one weightlifting activities for football players?
Squatting and bench pressing.
Squatting and bench press. So we'll just work with a bench press for first. Okay, so when we bench press, you lay on your back, put all your weights on, and okay? So when's the last time you saw an offensive lineman in the NFL laying on his back pushing up?
You don't.
You don't. So I'm like, well, if that's not part of your training, why are you doing it? Okay, would it make more sense to stand upright and push? And are there different muscles that are being engaged? I can do more of the chest press like an offensive lineman, and I can shuffle while I'm doing it. I can alternate push, I can push really fast. So if I have a defensive lineman coming at me, I can move either hand or both hands, and I can move with the athlete in real form. Why don't we mimic the real movement? And why don't we mimic it at the speed that we do the movement? So there's all kinds of things we can do to mimic real life sport. And that's what we try to do. So mimicking and try to be as close as we possibly can. So I think that's where it's going to go. People are going to see the need for real life movements versus let me just do what Arnold did. And I mean, those movements that Arnold Schwarzenegger did were awesome to build muscles. And if that's your goal, that's what you should do. But the rest of us just want to move better and stay active in our life. So let's just do the movements that we like and enjoy, and let's get our body moving together with assistance or resistance.
I love that. When I played college ball, it kind of did the same thing. Our coaches would always utilize things like that. And it was really our strength coach, I'll give it to him, was the strongest I ever was in college playing football. But, we did utilize a lot more of that. Farmers carries and things like that would keep all muscles engaged. So to see somebody taking that to the next level, that's, you really do. You talk about optimizing movement and training at the speed of life. What's the next evolution of that idea when you imagine smarter systems, better data, or even allowing something like AI helping personalize the Stroop experience and integrating into your business that doesn't take away from the personal one-on-one connection?
One of the cool things about our equipment is that with the Slastix, I can do anything you want. I can go in from squats to bicep curls to rotation. I can carry it with me to the park. I can go anywhere I want. And so this concept to say, how could I integrate, let's say, AI with Stroop stuff? The fact that we're portable, highly versatile, connect to almost anything, gives us that ability to kind of mesh with anybody's fitness level. So if I just want to be grandma at home and lift my 2-pound weights, that's all I can do. Okay, cool. We can fit in that space, or we could go to the elite athlete and crush them. So I remember one guy, we were at a trade show, and he gave him our battle ropes, the stretchable battle ropes. We call it the Beast, and 150-pound ones. So basically, he was running 20 feet, running 40 feet out, pulling 150 pounds, doing explosive movements, battle ropes, bear crawls, all kinds of stuff. And with a minute later, he was gassed. He's like, there's nothing else out here that got me anywhere close. So we can do that, but we could also go as lightweight as beginner fitness, overweight fitness, whatever, grandma fitness. We can do that. So if someone has the AI tech in it, we can do it. There's also, we've looked at some Bluetooth force meters that can measure how much your resistance is. The things that we found out right now is that not too many people are super interested in that kind of detail. We're trying to get them off the couch. Still in the fitness space, you're like, okay. And then the guys who want that data, they're like, I already know how to lift. I know how to do it. I don't want all that data. I know what I'm doing. And so they're the guys that already know what they're doing. The beginners have that. We're just trying to get them we're just trying to get them moving. And the way we try to get them to move is through things that they love. And instead of bench pressing, which is, if I have you do a movement that you're used to or like doing, golf, we could do a golf movement, we could do whatever, and make it fun to simulate an activity that you like to do, then it's more likely that you're going to stick with the fitness thing. So
absolutely. And I think a lot of people, that's just it. It's how to make it fun again, right? How to get it back to something you want to do. And I guess as you think about the next chapter for Stroops, right? Mm-hmm. New products, smarter content, tighter systems. What are the most exciting to explore, and where do you see the biggest upside for you and your team?
We're buying some new pieces of equipment. We just got into the wood business not too long ago, and we're going to purchase a new laser in the very near future to do fabric cuttings and laser cuttings and wood burning and some really cool new technologies. I think it's interesting is I think there's still a massive amount of business to be done in the non-tech space. You know, I was paying attention the other day and I said, how many people are out here being plumbers? How many people are out here mowing lawns and landscaping? How many people are in the construction business? How many in the fast food business? And there's a whole bunch of people, the far majority of the people that are not in the tech space, nor do they like the tech space. I mean, everyone likes their cell phone, but it's like, how do I make this simpler? And so I think there's still a strong space for, can you make my life simpler without too much tech?
Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, spending it here with us, really diving deep into what it means to be an entrepreneur, from napkin to concept to actually being a 30-year plus company that is making complete changes and waves into the industry that, you know, traditionally was already dominated. So I congratulate you. I thank you so much. Any final words for the viewers?
No, I just think don't give up on your dream and try to find the partner guys that are next to you. And I mean, I'm a little conservative, but don't spend all your money on one dream. Just build it over time, and that's okay. You know, take a little time and enjoy the ride, and not so much the dollars at the end. It'll come when it happens. But yeah, just keep working at it and find the right partners. It'll work.
Excellent advice. Live your life in motion and don't put all your eggs in one basket. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us for Behind the Desk, where we interview CEOs, VPs, business leaders, innovators around the world. Thank you again, Shon Harker with Stroops. Thank you so much again. You guys have a great one.
Thank you. Take care.